All right, good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. I will now call this meeting to order. Cindy, will you please call roll?
Chairman Ledoux.
Here.
Vice Chairman Willett. He's not paying attention to me.
That's you. You're here.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Clement.
Here.
Commissioner Souther.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Maleko.
Here.
Councilmember Representative Maloney, absent.
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I now ask for approval of the minutes from the March 26th, 2025 meeting. Is there a motion to be made?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
A second. Denise, will you call roll? Or Cindy, sorry.
That's okay. Chairman Ledoux.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Willett.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Clement.
Aye.
Commissioner Souther.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Maleko.
Aye.
All right, next item is the public hearing, and I will now open the public hearing. This is for a special review use of elementary school in R3 high-density residential zone district. The provisions of the city municipal code, and in particular Title 17 thereof, the subdivision regulations, and the comprehensive plan of the city of Canyon City are incorporated into the record of the hearing as set forth verbatim. May we have a staff report from the city planner?
Certainly. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. This evening, we are here to consider a request by applicant, the Reverend Sean Meager at the Livingstone Cavalry Chapel, for approval to locate an elementary school as an associated principal use of a property within the R3 high-density residential zone district. Under Canyon City's Unified Development Code, schools of any type, from elementary schools to universities, require approval of a special review use in any residential district. Subject property is addressed as 320 North 16th Street and located at the southeast corner of North 16th Street and Franklin Avenue. There are two lots which make up this property. The smaller of the two is the southern lot, comprising approximately 27,721.8 square feet, and includes drive aisles for circulation both within this property and connecting to the city market property immediately east of the subject property. The southerly parcel is the subject of a lease between the current property owner and City Market to allow truck deliveries to City Market to use this drive aisle for egress purposes when a delivery is completed. The larger of the two lots contains an existing church worship space, classroom facilities, and a detached two-car garage and associated parking. This lot is comprised of approximately 137,969.9 square feet, and the existing buildings were constructed in 1968. It is interesting to note that both lots did not always share the same R3 high-density zoning. While the smaller lot has retained the R3 high-density zoning dating back to when the existing church was built, the larger lot, however, was zoned R2 medium density until as recently as 2010 when it was rezoned to R3. The existing church space has a 250-person seating capacity. The parking requirements for a church under our code are one space per 4 persons of rated capacity, or 100 parking spaces. This is how many exist on site currently in an angled parking configuration. Livingstone Cavalry Chapel is the prospective buyer of both lots, and they seek to utilize the classroom space for more than simple Sunday school studies. They are seeking to create a private parochial elementary school with an enrollment limited to 80 students. It is this school use component which triggers the need to obtain a special review use approval. Schools, including elementary, middle, and high schools, as well as college or university campi, are considered special review uses in all residential zone districts, including the R3 high-density residential. Special review uses are described in section 1710.030 of the Unified Development Code as a type of discretionary use under zoning in which certain aspects of the use may potentially cause conflicts with surrounding uses and may therefore need additional conditions imposed upon them to mitigate these conflicts, or if the conflicts are too significant, the use can be denied as part of the public hearing. Schools in residential areas are treated as special use reviews primarily because of the traffic volumes that can be generated at drop-off times in the morning and pickup times in the afternoon. These traffic volumes can potentially affect circulation on streets around the school if not properly managed. SRUs are evaluated against 3 criteria established in section 1710.030, paragraph B of the UDC. All of these criteria center around the concept of compatibility with surrounding uses and consistency with the intent of the UDC. In analyzing special review use applications, it was noted that the proposed circulation plan for school drop-offs and pickups is some 633 feet in length. This equates for a queuing capacity of approximately 35 vehicles. For student enrollment, the applicant indicates will be capped at 80. That translates to perhaps a 5 to 10 minute window of vehicle stacking, with expedited departure given that egress from the site can happen to 2 surrounding streets, directly to the north to Franklin or to the west to North 16th Street. This circulation plan is anticipated to help limit traffic problems on surrounding streets and within surrounding neighborhoods. Section 3 of the staff report summarizes how this proposal is viewed in light of each of the approval criteria, with analysis on the SRU's compatibility with surrounding uses and neighborhoods, as well as how it conforms to the intent of the UDC. Ultimately, staff has found the proposed use is consistent with the 3 criteria for special review uses, and the proposed school can be considered for approval at this location. So with that, staff can report that as of yesterday, the 24th of June, 2025, staff has received no phone, mail, or email concerning this proposal other than a contact from the manager of City Market about their use of the drive-through lane. Public notice requirements concerning the public hearing before Planning Commission have been met in the time frame required by the Unified Development Code. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, following a public hearing on this request, cite the 4 findings of fact as a certification of Canyon City's jurisdiction to act on the use by special review request for a school as an associated principal use of the property at 320 North 16th Street. Staff also recommends that Planning Commission recommend City Council approve the use by special review request to allow an elementary school as an associated principal use of the property at 320 North 16th Street. That would conclude the staff presentation. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions that Planning Commission may have. Present to speak on behalf of this project is Reverend Sean Meager from Livingstone Calvary Chapel.
Thank you. Is there any commission comments for staff? Yes. Questions, comments for Patrick?
How long ago was it operated as a school last?
I don't know. I have been with the city for almost 8 years, and I can't think of a time when it was operating in the time I've worked for the city. So it's been at least 8 years.
Okay.
Question?
I've got a couple, actually. If I can get them, try to get them in the
Turn your mic on.
appropriate spot. Oh. Yeah, I've tried to get them in the appropriate spots, my questions, but anyway. Okay. Well, I guess my questions more relate to the local agency referral comments.
Mm-hmm.
And the fire department Subject to condition, I mean, well, that's more of a statement. The City of Canyon City Building Department, they mentioned that the applicant must provide an accessible route from public sidewalk to the building entrance. I'm sure that's gonna come up in their presentation, but
And they can do that effectively. The parking area, if you take a look at the map, you could see they've got a vast field of parking. And they
Right.
have designated walkways that go from the main entrance to the church, as well as the entrance to the school facility. And where it crosses the parking field, they can designate with white striping,
crosswalk?
like a crosswalk to get you out to the sidewalks on the surrounding streets. And that will be a challenge that they'll need to meet.
okay.
They'll call you up. They'll call you up. Okay.
I kind of thought they might address that. And then another question I had, there's the old cop coming out in me, from the police department. Traffic impact, I mean, I'm sure on church days, and I guess the church is still operational at this point. So they get that traffic on Sundays or Saturdays, whichever day. But this is kind of a everyday thing. My experience has been kind of that's almost right in prime commute time for everybody. And I guess probably we need to hear from the police department, or I'd need to hear from the police department as to their basis for no comments or concerns on that.
So I wouldn't presume to speak to what criteria the police department uses to evaluate this. They are sent a referral, as every other referral agency is. And I'm guessing that because there has not been a history of traffic issues with the operation of the church at that location in the last few years, they didn't see that adding a school component that had two kind of peak volume periods of time, one around 8 a.m., one around 3 p.m., would constitute some sort of impediment to traffic flows in that area. Similarly, you'll see that the engineering department had no comments or concerns, and they would have taken a look at traffic volumes and whatnot.
Yeah, that wasn't my big concern. It's just the police department not making anything, say, hey, it looks good to us. They just don't have any comments or concerns. And I'm very familiar with these kind of things, so that kind of piqued my antenna, if you will. And that, I guess that's the standard, we don't see any problem. That's the standard response that agencies come up with, not just police departments, but you can see in some of the other agencies, and I'm just curious as to somebody who's actually paying attention to the overall thing. And I'm just picking on the PD because I know PD stuff. So, and I've done a couple of these, so I'm just I would at least made it something more than that. Anyway, and I was just curious, and after seeing the layout of the thing, I was just kind of curious as to whether or not the school and the church share the same address, and I'm assuming they do. Because
They do. It's all one address. In fact, both lots have the same address, 320 North 16th.
Yeah. And then that comes back to, if it's been previously operated as a school, why are we coming back here to do this?
I
If
think
it's
it was
all-
previously operated for Sunday school classes. I don't think it was operated as a Monday through Friday private school. So that's the change.
Okay. I promise. Only a couple more. So, actually, that's part two, never mind. Vacant does a school, does the school, again, when it comes, the proposed purchaser comes up to make the presentation, I'm sure he'll answer this question, but I want to get it out there so we can address it. If it's vacant, was my question, which it appears to be so. And I know this came up with the fire department, kind of. If vacant, does the school meet current codes, or does it, I would suspect if it's been several years that,
Well,
It's
and
gonna
I don't know
need to come up to
the
date.
scope of what's intended to be done inside the building, and I don't know whether that triggers, coming into compliance with the current code or not. Those are quite, the applicant can certainly speak to that. I'd also have to defer to our building official. I don't enforce the building codes.
yes. That was just a question I had, because now we're talking kiddos and all that kind of thing, so, again. Okay, I'm done.
I have a few questions. The fire department did kind of allude that they needed to do a little bit more, like, in-depth research about the possible change of use. And I was wondering if there is on site a fire sprinkler system, or if you can see a potential that the fire department would require one.
So I'm pretty sure there is not a sprinkler system currently installed in the building. I don't know that those were required in 1968. And I think the only reason it would be triggered is if what they're doing inside the building, renovations, rise to the level where it now has to come into compliance with current building codes, and I think that would trigger a sprinkler system.
Well, not just changes in the building itself, but like you said, now it's gonna have kids there Monday through Friday, 8 to 3, like that. It's kinda like when the movie theater was going on Main Street, was gonna consider becoming like more like a comedy club and have alcohol, but all of a sudden that changed the use and they were gonna require fire sprinkler systems.
Well, it would change the occupancy. And
Yeah,
that's the difference
yes.
between zoning, where we're talking about use, and in this case, a discretionary use, and building codes, where we're talking about the type of occupancy that a building has. I don't get to do an analysis on the type of occupancy. That all falls under the building code, and that's the building, or chief building official's obligation to enforce. I don't get to do that. I get to apply the land use portion of the process.
Well, it just seems like it might be prudent to maybe ask some of those questions before making too big of an investment or getting too far into it. But it also kind of lies in also, if it is an older building, is it going to meet current state codes for fire and for ADA accessibility and restroom capacity? That's another question I think that might need to be asked. And I also was curious, we talked about maybe little crosswalks within where the cars were going to have their ingress and egresses, but what about walkability if kids were going to walk from the neighborhood to the school? Has that been consideration given for that?
So.
If there are sidewalks and safe routes?
So there are certainly sidewalks and safe routes that are being instituted. My understanding is that as a private parochial school, there will probably be very little pedestrian traffic going to the school from the surrounding neighborhoods. Most of them are driven there. I think the applicant can probably speak more to what they've experienced, their experience with school operations.
And maybe the church officials can answer these questions better as well. But I was just curious if they also will have an emergency evacuation plan for school when it's in operation, as well as safety plans. For example, if there's an intruder or school shootings, I know that's a really big topic for our public schools. And if the school is going to be hosting other non-school or non-religious uses besides.
I would have to defer to the applicant on that.
Those are my questions that I was curious to have answers to.
I actually have one more that I don't know why I didn't notice this sooner, but, and maybe this is a question for the applicant, but the traffic flow is actually the opposite of the direction that Safeway goes. So how is that going to be resolved? Because I mean, Safeway comes out the direction they're going in.
That's
Or,
City
I'm
Market.
sorry, not Safeway,
And
City
it's-
Market. City Market, yeah.
So I would assume that they could sign it so that the trucks would have to follow the same egress route.
The trucks can't go the other direction because of the way the docks are.
No, I mean, when they come out, right now, it intersects
Yeah.
at that easterly point of the site.
So the trucks are gonna go what, out through the center of the school's property?
Well, that's what they're doing now.
That would, that
Oh,
would
I
be
thought
off
they
of the
were,
lease.
I thought they were coming along the back edge of the building.
Well, they are.
They are, when they're,
It's on the
when they're
edge of the
leaving
park.
City Market. When they enter City Market, they're actually entering to the east of the City Market building,
Right.
Oh, okay.
Over by Big R.
over by Big
Over
R.
by Big R, and they come out, and once they get to those yellow arrows, where do they go?
Straight.
Straight.
They,
They go
they would follow the same egress route that the
So
vehicles
they're gonna go
do.
along the side of the elementary school.
Right. Yeah,
They come out, it's basically an alley. It's a right of way, but it's an alley behind the
Are you
building.
talking about the
Yeah.
southern part there?
They're gonna make a
It's on the
hard,
northern part of the,
so they make a hard left.
what is that,
coming
Craddock
up.
Square it's called? It's on the northern part of that back, basically the backside
Right.
of Dollar Tree, City Market,
Right.
Big R and all that.
But they're going west, and the
Yeah,
other
they're gonna
traffic's
make
going
that hard
east.
left coming out from behind there and then go out to 16th.
Are you talking about the flow of the parking lot to pick
Yeah.
up? Okay.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
that'd be kinda going,
I guess that would be a
Oops. I
question.
I mean, there's even a sign there on the side and that little tree line that says, one way, don't go this way. So, and you can't really reverse the flow of the Safeway trucks because the way the docks are, they have to come west and then back into the dock. So they're gonna be like this. So how's that being worked out?
I'm not understanding the question. When you're.
May I approach
when-
the screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the Safeway trucks come out through here, this direction.
Correct.
They can't go this way because they have to come in this way and then back into the dock.
No, they come in through, going alongside the Big R.
Big
When they
R,
come
they
out,
come
then
in
they
and
reverse
stop.
into the bay.
Right. So they can't start going this way instead.
Well, they're not going to. They're gonna
So
continue.
Safeway trucks are gonna go this way and the school's gonna come this way.
No. The arriving trucks are still gonna use the route that they use, which is to come into the site off of Fremont Drive, go past Big R and behind the City Market, and then back into one of the bays. It's when they're exiting the site that they will have to cross this lot.
So where are they going to go there?
yeah.
Here?
they're
Yes.
They're gonna go out the top and through, across the parking lot and out the driveway,
Instead of how they're going now, which is here.
which is again upstream from the rest of the traffic.
Because I don't think they come out here now. I think they come out this way.
They do come out that way now.
So now we're gonna redirect Safeway trucks through the middle of the church parking lot.
That is an option, yes.
Well, I'm asking, what are we going to do?
That's a
Well,
lot of
let me
wear
throw-
and
let me
tear on the
throw
park-
something in on
parking
this.
lot.
As often as City Market gets deliveries at this time of day, which would be far and few between, most of their deliveries are early in the morning or late at night.
Right.
They do have trucks, only from experience of dealing with City Market. They do have trucks that come during the day, but they're very frequent.
Very frequent? That would
Or
even be
unfrequent,
worse.
I mean.
Okay, infrequent. yeah.
Infrequent.
Yeah. okay.
Speak English.
But I don't know.
Is it a two-lane road?
No.
No,
it's one way
it
out.
is a one-lane drive lane.
It's a one-lane
And
drive.
the lease is on the southern side.
The lease is on the southern
So
side,
the
yes.
trucks would be following the lease, they would be going opposite school traffic. So
Right.
there will be a
Correct.
problem if there's
Potentially.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
a delivery at the time of pickup or drop-off.
right.
I don't know that the pickup and drop-off times conflict with the delivery times of Safeway. Is, I think, the point
City
that
Market.
Commissioner Clark was making.
City Market. See
City
what you-
Market.
See what
Sorry.
you did? See what you did, Aaron?
But are we leaving that to chance? I mean, that's a,
I mean,
If-
that said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
you're all good.
But that said, they're gonna have to make it very clear to delivery vehicles, that these are school times,
And
and
it,
don't expect to go anywhere during that time.
you can certainly impose a condition, making a formal direction for the movement of traffic. Before you do that, you might want to hear from the applicant. They may have some insights on this.
Understood.
We might reverse the yellow arrows. I don't know.
No, because I
And
like
you'd
how
have
the
a bottleneck.
egress has two different options.
That's
Two
true.
lanes feeding down into one.
But as it is now, they're going into each other. If the times happen at the same time, which they could.
If we could, do you have a question? No. If we could get the applicant, that would be
Yeah.
fantastic. So,
He knows our concerns now, so we can address everything.
yeah, we're happy to repeat questions, but if you want to start addressing them.
You want to start with this one? So I have a good relationship with Chuck, the manager at City Market. I've already had a face-to-face conversation with him. So first of all, just like with any school, they have staff out in the parking lots or at the crosswalks when kids are coming. We will still have that. And Chuck just wanted to have a conversation to go, how are we going to handle this if this happens? And so you've seen the people with the crosswalks with the stop signs. That was our first, Chuck and I's first option. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we plan on doing. And like was already presented in the staff's report, the total drop-off time is going to be about 15 minutes. Pickup will not be that way. Pickup will be where the parents come or the kids walk out to the parking lot where the people are parked. So it would only be utilized in the morning for about 15 minutes, somewhere between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. May I also address this? The second option would be, like you said, reversing the arrows. You could come in that way, lining here, and then coming in like that, if that would better suit. But we don't, after speaking to Chuck, we don't foresee a problem with his drop-off and pickup times for the trucks to really be a problem with what we're planning on doing.
If you did reverse that, you'd create one heck of a bottleneck, because you got two coming in to that and then going around, and that's a really narrow alleyway.
Well, we would have a designated lane in front of that and letting our parents know that this is how we do it, simple communication.
Well, I have a question with regard to that. The end of that parking lot where you have the entrance coming in on this, next to the buildings, that's not, the parking lot's not capped off right there, is it?
No, it's got a driveway cut out
Yeah.
to 16.
You could actually change that route.
That's what I was saying, yeah, we would come in off of Franklin, line up along that line, that lane in front of the church, and then turn in and then come around and come back out.
Actually, I was referring to the other end of it.
You could do that as well. They're both accessible to, there's two cutouts onto 16th and one cutout onto Franklin.
Right.
Right.
But again, Chuck didn't see any problem with the resolution we came together as far as having someone there, a staff in, because we're going to have them outside anyway, in the vests and a stop and go. And so if it was an issue of a truck coming out, it would just be a simple management of stopping and allowing people to come in and come out.
Just tell the truck drivers to take a long lunch and not even have to worry about it.
And he didn't see it as the time frame with which we were operating, and I think one of the commissioners always mentioned that there's not a lot of truck traffic at that particular time.
I'm a little concerned about the idea of 80 kids going out to the parking lot to get into their cars and parents backing up. I'd almost prefer that they have the option to pick them up at the curbside.
Well, if you see how the other elementary schools town operate, kids go out to the parking lots to meet their parents at all the other schools.
Well, I have kids, and I pick them up, and it's chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's managed chaos with people in the parking lot overseeing the welfare of the children. I mean, we're not going into business here to bring harm to our children.
even so, there was a high school student that did get hit by a car this school year. I mean, it does happen,
Sure,
unfortunately.
yeah. There is a risk when you have kids in cars.
In order to reduce the chaos, is there bicycle parking provided?
We can do that. I mean, we can definitely put bicycle racks. We have bicycle racks at the church that we have now. A lot of people ride their bikes to church, and so we could definitely do that.
Okay, but there's
And
existing.
I imagine there are going to be some kids that are probably riding bikes, I would imagine, so we would want to do that.
But those bike racks are on the other side of the building, aren't they?
I don't think there's any here now on this property.
I think there's some on the other side of that building.
I think there's some up close to the worship space
Right.
entrance.
There's like 5.
Okay.
And I do have another question about, and I think that was the fire district kind of alluded to the aspect of, I can see where you've got the, actually that sidewalk, the farthest east sidewalk there, that comes out onto Franklin. And that keeps the kids out of the driveway of vehicles coming in and out.
Correct. That was Kathy's concern, and that's what she wanted, was to make sure that we had a sidewalk from one of the roads where the kids could access directly to the building on a sidewalk, and we have 2.
And then my question then becomes, and kids, that the way it's situated right now, is there, to get to the building without cutting through, they're gonna cut through traffic, I mean, kids are kids. But the kids going up north, just a suggestion, a sidewalk across that grass straight into that other sidewalk where we talked about having that little crosswalk thing, is maybe just having putting in a sidewalk just to go straight across. I know the kids are gonna they're gonna ruin the grass.
And quite honestly, I suspect that our foot traffic is going to be minimal to none.
Okay.
Just because, a parochial type school is, it's not like we're a neighborhood school where kids are coming from the neighborhood. Now, there may be a few, not saying that there won't, but more than likely, the demographic that we'll be reaching will be beyond, all
Yeah.
just a neighborhood school like what we have in our community now.
Right.
Is there any consideration for at least the start time to be offset from the high school? And I know that, basically 15th Street is stressed, if you will,
You mean
roughly-
Franklin?
Well, no, I mean Franklin tees into 15th, and 15th.
Oh, you mean
is-
on 15th?
Right,
Yeah,
right. So there's high load of traffic, roughly the time the high school starts.
sure.
And gets out both.
But we have the additional access through 16th as well. We can access the parking lot through 16th as well as Franklin, not have to be on 15th.
Right, and I think most of the 16th will go to the, I guess Main Street at that point. They'll go to the traffic circle, and then they'll feed right into the rest of the traffic. But
Yeah,
yeah, consideration.
okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No, but he needs his name and address for the record.
Sure. For the record, can you state your name?
Yeah, my name is Sean Maher, and you said my address as well? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Okay,
You can list the address of the church. is
320
all.
North 16th.
Perfect.
And if I may address Ms. Smith, Commissioner Smith's concern with the fire. So I did meet with Austin, who is the fire inspector, life safety officer there. And basically, so anytime you do a school, there's what has to meet the state and regulatory codes that they require. Has to have a site review, and that's what we did. We did a site review, and at this point, there is no there's no activation within the code for what we're doing to have a sprinkler system, but to do some kind of fire alarm system, and that's what we're currently working with. And then all the other codes that come along with that, with your egress, exiting lighting and your fire extinguishers. And so we have to do that once a year right now with the preschool that we have to meet state regulations. And that's what he was referring to on that. And we've met and we have a plan. So,
Okay.
yep.
What about a safety plan for the students while they're?
That's part of it. There's just all buildings have to meet code with standard evacuation placards and signs to show how that works, but yeah. And we have to do, tornado drills, potential fire evacuation drills. Those are required, multiple times through the year, so that will all be part of it.
What about intruder drills or school shootings?
Yeah, right now, the preschool that we operate at our current church, we run as a lockdown facility already, or a lockout facility, that nobody gets in, the doors are locked. That'll be the same thing with this facility here.
Okay.
And there will be probably armed, because we're a parochial school, we have the ability to maybe arm a staff member. God forbid that would ever have to happen, but, I know what kind of world we live in, and it's sad.
Then with that in mind, if you're gonna have somebody armed on board, and I don't know, there may be regulations from the schools and school board, school district, however it works. To do that, I will make a suggestion.
Okay.
Rather than a question, is that if you're gonna do that, and you need, truly need to ensure that that person knows what the hell they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are, and our church already operates with a armed security team that is there on Sunday mornings at our
Good.
church services.
Okay.
They train regularly. Our insurance policy covers them specifically, and there are requirements through our insurance policy that we have to meet with each one of our armed security staff already, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good.
They have to qualify, they have to have training. Yeah, we take that part very seriously to maintain our insurance standards.
That can be very, it's a trying thing, I understand.
Yeah,
And it, in my experience, it's not cheap to do that, to have
No.
those people.
it's not.
And I would just, again, and I think all of us are in the agreement that we're dealing with our kiddos here, and that's one of the things that I personally have a big deal with, is making sure that whoever you put in charge of that aspect of it, whoever you give the gun to make sure the kids are safe, that they know what the hell they're doing. So,
Thank you.
I just don't want to see anybody try to cheap out on something like that,
Yeah,
Commissioner
we're-
Clement,
we're-
you have a question?
I do.
Oh, yeah, Dee Dee.
I'm just curious to know more about your school, like what grades are you teaching and that kind of thing.
So it'll be K through 6 to begin with, and the hope is to grow it into K through 8. And the model that we've seen work in other parochial schools that we've been involved with is your 6th graders graduate, and then, or they phase into that next year. So starting with a K through 6 to begin with.
And do you have any idea of when you would like to open your school?
It wouldn't be this year, it would be the following year,
Okay.
26.
20
26, 27, I think
Yep.
that's right, yeah.
Based off that, I have a question.
Yes,
So at some point in time, you're planning on expanding the building?
no.
Okay.
No, we want to offer specialized, keep it to that size, because we think that we can offer good quality education. And quite frankly, I don't know if there's really a need for that in this community. If by chance it did explode, I mean, we obviously live in a pretty overall poor community, and so for people to have the extra funds for a parochial school is hard to come by for most. And that's one of the reasons why we've been wanting to do it alongside with the church, is because the church covers the operating costs of the school as a ministry, so the only real expenses we'll have that will go to the school will be for the staff, for the teachers, and to make it affordable for our demographic and our community. But to also, we have no desire to have a large school. And if, like I said, if it ever did do that, then hopefully it would just be a place where we could build a standalone facility where we would have a school. But I don't.
That's a large property that's got plenty of expansion room.
It does, but when you expand to that building being in 1968, that triggers a lot of the International Building Code, and it would be really it wouldn't be cost effective to be able to do that to that building and have to bring all that up to the current code. The best thing would have to probably be a freestanding facility, a freestanding thing.
Is there a gymnasium on location?
I'm sorry.
Is there a gymnasium?
No. That sanctuary can be used as 35 feet tall on the inside, so we could use that as a multi-purpose room. We're putting chairs in there, taking the pews out. We've spoken to the church that's on the east side of it, the Church of Christ, and the pastor there talks about buying the dirt from them or leasing the dirt from them that are in between the two. And he said once we get through the zoning and the regulations to come talk to him, that they have, that church is also down to about 25 people, and they've never done anything with that dirt. And I'm saying that is because we would fence it off and put that into like a soccer field or grass field area for kids to be able to have a safe space to play.
And will the school be hosting after-school events and programs?
More than likely not, because that will still be used as a church as well. And so what we will have there is we have our evening men's and women's Bible studies, midweek service type stuff. So at this point, we don't foresee anything like that just because of the multi-use of the building is already first and foremost for a church.
Any other questions for the applicant? Are there any comments from the audience? Seeing none. What's that?
It's a big old crowd and not much to say.
Okay. Seeing none, I will now close this public hearing. Is there any further discussion of the commission? Seeing none, I would now call for a motion and a second.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission adopt the 4 findings of fact regarding the proposed special review use to allow a school as a principal use on the property at 320 North 16th Street in the R3 High-Density Residential District Zone. And I further move that the Planning Commission recommend the Council approve a special review use to permit a school as a principal use of the property at 320 North 16th Street in the R3 High-Density Residential District Zone.
And we have to do that in 2 steps. Is there a second for the first?
I can't do them both?
Not at the
No,
same.
you can't. Well, you can, we gotta get a
We'll
thing done
pause, we'll
first.
do it in a minute. That's fine.
I'll second.
No, you second the first part.
All right, there's a second for the first. Cindy, will you call roll?
Chairman Ledoux,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Willett,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Clement,
Aye.
Commissioner Souther,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Maleko.
Aye.
Now, the motion for the second part was already made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Cindy, will you please call roll?
Commissioner Ledoux,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Willett,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Clement,
Aye.
Commissioner Souther,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Maleko.
Aye.
Next item is announcements and discussion items. We have a request for a planning commission member assistance.
Yes, sir. So in your packets this evening, you have a copy of the request for proposals that we've actually been working on for quite some time. City and Black Hills Energy have been in negotiations for, goodness, most of the last year to acquire the old W.N. Clark site that was formerly the location of a coal-fired power plant that was decommissioned and I think torn down somewhere around 2010. So since it no longer functions as a power generating facility, Black Hills has had an interest in disposing of the property. They don't want to have the liability associated with continuing to hold the property. City has been ultimately concerned about the possibility for contamination given the use that had been there. So for much of the decade of the teens, Black Hills Energy was bringing in crews to remediate the site and clean up the contamination. And last year, I think they convinced council that they have done a quality job with this to the point where the city is not exposed to any potential liability for acquiring the ground and doing something with it. This particular piece of ground has been a high priority for the city. If we go back to, for instance, the Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan that the city did, I think, over 2016 and 2017. It's also figured very prominently in our comprehensive plan, which was sort of bringing some of these old studies back and giving them more significance and prominence in the comprehensive plan. And given that we have also received some grant funding from DOLA for this project, not only the land acquisition, but the master planning, and we came to an agreement to purchase the property from Black Hills Energy, and I believe, in fact, we closed on that today. Either today or tomorrow, we will close and take possession of the property. We are moving forward with a master plan to study this, to take into account not only all of those previous studies that have been done, but work with stakeholder groups. And my guess is for this particular piece of property, the stakeholder list is going to be relatively long. So the firm that we go with is going to have quite a challenge keeping all of these groups accommodated and meeting and talking and conversing and coming to agreement. So we published this RFP on Thursday, June 5th. In that time, as of today, on BidNet, it has been the subject of 108 downloads by folks who may want to submit a particular bid. I also published this to my LinkedIn page with a link to BidNet. As of today, there were 656 impressions, 19 reactions, and 6 reposts on LinkedIn. So this is clearly generating an awful lot of interest. We anticipate we will probably be getting quite a few proposals when the deadline comes in on July 31st, excuse me. And we are putting together a committee to help evaluate the various proposals and select the winning vendor. So we're looking for 1 or 2 members of Planning Commission to help us as part of that selection committee. So, Mr. Willett?
Throw me in.
I have an interest as well.
Commissioner Smith and Willett.
Commissioner Smith
anyone
and
else?
Commissioner Willett? Absolutely.
Are there others? Anyone? Okay.
There's a balance that we had 2 members of council, so we'll have 2 planning commission members, so there's a nice balance there.
Oh, we need another one of us then.
We need to outnumber those guys.
Do you know when they'll be meeting?
So the first step in this is going to be next Monday, the 30th. We are holding a question and answer session in the south part of this room, where we will not only have, I'll be there making a presentation. I'll be taking questions and answers from the people who are in attendance. We're also going to offer a Teams link for folks who are in different parts of the country or maybe couldn't make it here in person to also participate and ask questions. And then following that, and I've never been able to do this with any kind of an RFP we've done before, I'm going to be taking the folks who are here in person on a tour of the site. We're actually going to go over and walk the site with them. So I think that'll be real helpful and will help to inform what they write in terms of their proposals back to us. So that'll be the first step. The questions that were asked, we will make kind of a transcript of that, and I think it gets posted back to BidNet, the list of questions and answers. I think the deadline for that is July 12th. And then the actual deadline for submittals is 4 p.m. on July 31st. So we will spend that early part of August kind of weeding out the number that we get until we reach maybe 4 or 5, where we want to have them come down and interview with us in person.
Patrick, real quickly, and I may have taken this down wrong. Remind me, you were talking about the meeting was this Friday, following Friday, the question and answer thing?
The question and answer session is next Monday, the 30th.
Monday, okay, because that's what I had, and I just, my question.
And that's actually written into this RFP as well.
Right. Then my question became, the question I was gonna ask, because I got it on my calendar, was, can we come to that, or do we?
You are certainly welcome to come.
Okay.
It is not required. In fact, I made it clear in the RFP, firms that want to submit a proposal are not required to attend the Q&A, but they may find the Q&A informative enough to avoid potential mistakes in what they submit as a proposal. So I would anticipate we will probably have a fair number of people here in person, and probably a fair few joining us via Teams meetings as well.
Patrick, I was just reading this, and so the goal for this consultant is for them to create something with that space? Is that?
They're going to design something with that space, but in order to do that, and we've been making this, I will make this very clear at the Q&A on Monday, the public input that has to be gleaned to inform what that plan looks like is going to be very extensive, probably even more extensive than what we did with Clock Tower Plaza. Clock Tower Plaza was a process that was maybe 7 or 8 months total. I would imagine this one will be a year.
I don't believe it.
Just a clarification, this does not include the Skyline Steel property?
This does not include the Skyline Steel. The alternative, there's a component to this where we were talking about the redevelopment of the Parks office at Centennial Park. And depending upon what those bids come in, we may go forward with it, or we may decide, not at this time, we'll jettison that and maybe do that at some point in the future. But the fact that these two parcels are so close together gives them kind of a linkage to the two of them. And I'm kind of viewing what we do with the Black Hills Energy parcel, which I think we're now going to tentatively call Western Gateway, for lack of a better name at this point. What we do there is going to serve as the start for what will be our river walk. So that's a very important component to what we want to see as the future of our river frontage.
It also looked like for the parks that it was looking like there might be more interest in maybe some commercial uses rather than public space. Is that? Or
I
is it
mean,
really just depends on what the public engagement?
that's going to largely depend on what the public tells us they would like to see. So it's not off the table at this point. But I thank you, Commissioner Smith and Willett.
Okay, any other discussions or announcements? With that, the next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for July 23rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned.